What's up, guys? Welcome to How to Quit Weed 101 Masterclass by Chaz Adams, and that is myself. Now, before we start, let's hit you with a disclaimer. I am not a healthcare professional or a certified counselor. This information is based off personal experience and research. If you or loved ones need professional help with drug addiction, please contact the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration National Helpline at 1-800-662-4357 for information on support and treatment facilities in your area. Okay, guys. So if we're here, we probably have recognized we have an issue with addiction. So I wanted to bring you guys this kind of not extremely in depth, but sort of in depth introduction class on how to quit weed if you are starting or new to your marijuana sobriety journey. So, what are the overall goals of today's session? First, this course is not designed to simply help you kick weed addiction, but also to help you discover a new side of yourself. Because when I smoke weed personally. I smoked weed for almost 20 years. I started smoking weed when I was around 16 years old. I did not stop until the age of 34. So I had a pretty extensive run on smoking weed. I quickly went to smoking weed day to day. I'll say by the age of 18. So from 18 to 34, I would say between the ages of 32 and 34, I went through bouts of trying to wing myself off, trying to cut down, but I didn't fully kick the habit until 34, going on 35. But I don't want to simply help you quit weed, but help you discover a new side of yourself. And whether you do know it or not, quitting weed is bigger than just quitting weed. You're usually blocking some sort of depression, anxiety, some type of insecurity that you have. You're using weed as a blanket. And once you quit weed, even if you don't realize it, you will discover a new side of yourself. Now, remember that no addiction happens overnight, and it usually has a root cause that led you down that road. I believe you completely get over your issue in life, but we must start from the root cause. I'm a firm believer of starting from the root cause. I don't believe we can truly change anything until we discover the root cause why we did a certain thing. If you truly want to kill something, let's attack it from the roots, just like a weed. If you just cut the top of the weeds off, it's gonna grow back probably faster than it actually grew the first time. But if you actually pull it out by the root, that weed won't actually come back. I actually didn't mean to use weed like grass weed, but it definitely fits on what we're talking about here. Now it says you may be coming into it just wanting to stop smoking weed, but this may lead to some personal therapy for you. Again, as I said, I'm not a licensed therapist. I am not a counselor, but I do believe once we tackle our addiction and try to go it from the root cause, it does require some type of self therapy for yourself. And we don't need, in many cases, a lot of cases, we don't need a person to be a therapist for us. We can answer a lot of our own questions. So by going to the root cause on why you smoke weed, you will discover a lot of new things that you probably didn't realize about yourself. Again, I aim to help you change your life and open a new chapter, and it starts with quitting weed. Maybe you are going to start a new business. Maybe you want to start a new health journey. Maybe you want to start a new relationship or try to work on an existing relationship. You can start by just quitting weed, and it will, I guarantee you, start a trickle effect in your life. and you will start to work on other areas, because once you don't have that cloudy haze of weed over you, that allows you to actually focus on your problems and solve them. Okay, so section one, the root. Again, if you want to tackle any problem, we always want to start from the root, find out the root cause. And there can be many root causes, there can be several root causes. What I come to realize when I first um, quit weed, or I would say after I quit weed, I always thought maybe it was one particular thing that led me down addiction, whether it was my parents or my surroundings or my anxiety or different things. But I've come to realize that a lot of times it's not just one particular root cause. It can be just one, but in a lot of cases, it's a combination of many root causes that allows you to hang on to weed as an addiction. Now, many people say that weed is not an addiction, that it's a habit, or you're just dependent on it. And no, it's a going debate on whether weed is actually addictive. I will say weed is definitely addictive. In many cases, people say it's not addictive because you don't have a lot of physical withdrawals, which you do, just it's not as serious as harsh drugs and even alcohol, and that your body doesn't physically require it after you've been on it for a long time, which I do agree. But we can't just box addiction into that one category. We have things like porn, we have things like even exercise, things like shopping, things like gambling. There's a lot of addictions that your body doesn't require, that it is pretty much a mental thing. And I also don't understand why people say, it's not addictive because your body doesn't physically require it, but we ignore that it's a mental drug. Okay, is your mind not a big part of your body? If your mind is tricking you into thinking you need weed, why can't we say that your body is making you dependent on it? Our mind, our brain is definitely a part of our body. So again, section one, let's tackle on what some root causes may be. And some of these things may not actually be your root cause or may pertain to you, or some may, but I want to go through all of them or through a lot of them so we kind of cover all areas or all spectrums. If you want to find true understanding of your addiction and what led you there, it's best to start from the beginning. If you want to know how to build something, you don't start from, if it's 100 pages, you don't start from page 7, page 10, page 15. You start from page 1. So if you want to start out how you got to 100, let's go all the way back to page 1 and find out how you got there. There can be, again, one root cause or numerous root causes. It can differ from person to person. You know, may not I may not have been influenced by my surroundings, but maybe my parents influenced me to smoke. Maybe I my parents didn't smoke. Maybe I picked it up from my friends. Maybe I picked it up from the media. Maybe I had sleep issues or depression or anxiety issues that I use weed to cope with. It can differ from person to person. If you want to find out something, how something was made, again, it's best to start from page 1. Why do you smoke weed? So again, let's answer a simple question. Why do you smoke weed? So I'm gonna go through a few different answers on what people who typically have been smoking for a long time usually say. Or vape. I always say smoke weed, but there are people who vape or consume edibles as well. So I mean, vaping could be your thing. edibles could be your thing. I'm not just limiting it down to those who smoke weed, but typically smoking weed is the most common way of intaking marijuana. I like the way it makes me feel. And this is what I call a safe answer. This is the safest answer that most people will give. It's a carefree answer. I like the way it makes me feel, which I agree. I, to myself, like how weed made me feel. But what I would say to that is, why do we want to alter our state of feeling? This is true for any vice. No one chooses a vice that doesn't make them feel good. If people drink alcohol, they like how the alcohol makes them feel. If they uh, take cocaine, they like how the cocaine make them feel. If they take bath salts, they like how the bath salts make them feel. So, you know, that's not really a reason why you smoke. That's the ultimate goal is to alter your state of feeling. And why do you want to alter your state of feeling? I would say the next time that you choose to smoke or vape, I would take note of how you feel before you got high. Are you happy? Are you relaxed? Are you sad? Are you anxious? What emotions are going through your head before you actually choose to get high? And then take note of how you feel when you get high. Are you happy? Are you relaxed? Do you feel relieved? Are you giggly? Do you feel the same? And then I would take note of how you feel after the high has worn off. So about an hour or two. How do you feel then? Are you still happy? Are you still relaxed? Are you back to the state that you were before you actually smoked? By doing these, taking these note of our feelings before, during, and after, we can kind of help ourselves grasp our motivation behind why we are smoking. Are we using it to alter our feeling? Are we using it to cope with our emotions that we're going through? This will help you gain a better understanding of yourself and how you deal with your emotions. And there's still more. My head is actually blocking my some of my PowerPoint, but there are still more concrete reasons on why we want to feel high, whether you know it or not. So again, we say I like the way it makes me feel. That's just a safe answer. Duh. I would hope who would be smoking weed and they don't like the way it makes them feel. Why are you doing it? But again, I would say, why do you want to alter your state of feeling? I smoke because of my social circle. You may have started smoking in your teen years. Myself, that's when I started smoking. The day I turned 16, I got my driver's license. We went to Brittany Brown's, I'm sure she's not watching this, birthday party. Me and my best friend, he actually had smoked some weed before then, and he asked me, and I kind of lied like I had previously smoked to act like I was cool or, yeah, cooler than what I really was. So I'm like, yeah, I smoke, not a big deal. So I smoked my first time on my 16th birthday, and it pretty much from that point on, I didn't. It started from a every couple weeks things to a every weekend thing to a every other day thing to, like I said, by the age of 18, probably I'm gonna say by the age of 17, I was smoking weed every single day. But it started with my friends, me, my social circle. Your family members may have smoked weed. Now, this is not discussed a lot because usually, society paint a picture of, your parents being squares, and they don't smoke the reefer, or don't do this. And in many cases, and we're now to that, we're a lot of us are now in a generation of where our parents were grew up in the 70s. So many of them kept their weed addiction on into their adult years. So many of us actually may have picked up smoking from our parents, as weird as that may be. Me in particular, my mother has always and still does smoke weed every day. Although I can't say I smoke weed specifically because of her, I do think her smoking was a big reason on why I continued to smoke weed and become addicted to it. Because I always grew up seeing her smoke. She didn't always smoke in front of me when I was a small child, but I did know when she would go in her room, close her door, I could smell it. I knew she smoked something. When I got older, I realized, okay, it's not cigarettes, it's weed. And I think a big part of my acceptance of weed, even probably with my friend going to that first birthday party, maybe if I hadn't seen her smoke weed, I may have been more apprehensive and said, I no, I don't smoke. I don't want to smoke. But because I had been accustomed to seeing my mother smokes, and I mean, she seems normal. She has a 9 to 5 job, or 8 to 4, whatever. She's a has a college degree. She's a regular human being. She smokes weed every day. I was probably more accepting to try it at 16 because my mother herself smoked weed. You feel like the black sheep if you don't participate. Again, we can feel like maybe I'm not cool if I don't smoke. I'm not, uh, I don't feel like the outcast, the outsider. And although if we're here at this point watching this presentation, you probably don't still smoke because of peer pressure, but a lot of times it did start either because of peer pressure, again, whether from our friends, from our family, but you smoke because you want to seem cool, you don't want to seem lame, or you want to have something in common with your friends or with your family. And it's the last link that connects you. And maybe this goes into probably why you still smoke. A lot of times, although we may not still base us smoking weed on our social circle, we also may have a fear of quitting because it may be the last link to your friend. My best friend, the same one that I started smoking with, I mean, I still would consider him my best friend, but I also can say by our 30s, the last link that we had together was weed. We pretty much had nothing in common by our early 30s. Although we both had children, he still go to the club, he still partied, he smoke and drink all day. I chose a more stable family life and a more traditional job. So we didn't have much in common, but we still had weed in common. So we'll feel like, okay, if I don't smoke, not saying we may keep smoking solely for our friends, but there can be a reason, and probably uh, a reason that we may actually not want to quit because we feel like I won't. That's the last link I have to my friend, and we won't have anything in common after that. If weed is the only thing that still connects you to your friend, then it's probably time for y'all to move on, and y'all have grown in separate areas in life. It helps me with anxiety and depression. And I put in parentheses, it's better than alcohol. So we're going to focus on anxiety first. I'll tackle anxiety and depression separately. So anxiety is a big one. And it's actually kind of a pet peeve with mine. I think people use anxiety very loosely now, and it's one of the most common reasons people choose to consume weed. I would say, what is anxiety? Anxiety is the feeling of worry, nervousness, or unease, typically about an intimate event or something with an uncertain outcome. And the thing about anxiety is it's normal. We all have anxiety. We're never not going to have some type of anxiety in our life. It's not uncommon to have anxiety. And I think we make it like this disease or this abnormal thing. Anxiety is your body telling you that there's something wrong. You're nervous about something with an uncertain outcome. Anxiety is not a bad thing. If we don't have anxiety in life, we don't know when it's time to change something, when it's time to take precaution, when it's time to stop something, when it's time to pursue something. Anxiety is a sign in our life that we should recognize, and it's telling us about something deeper that we should address. The problem with we and anxiety is we mass anxiety. We have anxiety. We'll say it could be anxiety about, oh, I'm uncertain about my career, my bills. Bills are piling up. I'm not where I want to be in my career. I don't make enough money. I'm feeling this anxiety, this pressure. Let me go outside and smoke on a porch. Okay, we smoke and we feel better. You say, I the bills are hitting me. The job is not where I want, but life is fine. Life is okay. I'll I'll get past it. And although we shouldn't be in a state of worry 24/7, but I think the problem with weed, maybe we should be trying to find a better job. Maybe we should try to find avenues to save money, to cut bills. There should be some type of something we can actually do to solve our anxiety. And we just mask anxiety and we kind of sweep it under the rug until an hour or two later when the anxiety comes back and we just smoke to sweep that back un- under the rug, and we take longer or prolong us solving the actual problem that we have. Weed does not solve anxiety. It just masks it for a short period of time. I repeat, weed does not solve anxiety. It just masks anxiety for a short period of time. That's why you fall into the cycle of addiction. You feel anxiety, you just smoke, get it away. And you just have this daily cycle of feeling anxiety and just smoking to block that feeling. In turn, we're not actually solving the problem and finding out why we are constantly getting this anxiety, especially if it's the same anxiety about the same issues. So, how do we solve anxiety? One, what are you worried about? Okay, this is a step by this is, and maybe I'm kind of going off topic on weed addiction, but I think this is important again in root causes and trying to think of alternatives, not only to find out why we smoke weed, but I want to focus on anxiety and depression so we don't continue to use that as a crutch and we try to solve these things on our own without the help of cannabis. So, one, what are you worried about? You know what you're worried about. Are you worried about a job? Is it about money? Is it about bills? Is it about your health? Is it about your loved ones? Is it about a relationship? Or it can be multiple things. You can have multiple. We live in a busy life. We could have multiple things that we are worried about. But one by one, let's name them and find out where this anxiety is actually coming from. Two, ask yourself, can you change the situation or help determine the outcome? Can you actually change the situation or determine the outcome? Some things we can't change. Some things are out of our control. um, Gas prices, things like just certain things just out of our control. There's nothing we can do. So let's determine what we're worried about and determine, is this something I can actually change, or I can actually change the outcome of the situation. Three, what can you do to change the situation or outcome? So once you find out if you can change it or not, if you can't change it, then let it go. This is the case where I would say don't hold on to that. We can't linger on things that we can't change. But if you can change it, let's find out what you can do, what steps you can take to actually change the outcome or the situation. Excuse me. Start the process of changing the outcome. Once we find out what we're worried about, we figure out if we can change it, what can we do, and let's implement it. Got a little choke, guys. Hold on. It's one thing knowing how to change. It's one thing knowing what you can do. It's another thing to actually implement the change and start the process. So once we actually find out how we can change it, let's start the process and change our outcome. What about depression? This is a big one. We, especially with our younger generation now, depression is also a big word. We use it a lot, and I think we also use it very loosely. I think I think not many people are clinically depressed. I would, if you do feel like you have clinical depression, I would try to look out for professional help and determine if you actually have clinical depression. So, have you actually been diagnosed with depression? And I would also ask, are you depressed in general, or are you just depressed about a particular situation? A lot of times we can be, I think with clinical depression, you're probably, and I don't know, 'cause like I said, I'm not a healthcare professional, but I've heard that you're depressed in general. Like nothing, n- nothing is good. Nothing. You don't see the light in anything. You can't get out of bed. You just linger in everything, sadness. But a lot of times we can be depressed about a particular situation. And I would ask, could you just be sad rather than depressed? Depression is such a big word. It's almost a trendish word to say I suffer with depression. And I think many people don't want to just say, maybe I'm not depressed, but I'm just sad about a particular situation. Just like anxiety, a lot of times there are particular situations that we are sad or depressed about. But a lot of times maybe you're not suffering from depression. You're just sad about a particular situation, and nothing's wrong with that. That's fine. It's nothing wrong to admit, I'm sad about this. I'm sad about where I'm at in life. I'm sad about how I've been acting as a husband, as a boyfriend. I'm sad about how I'm how I have not cared about my health and where I'm at in life. Nothing's wrong with that, but we have to admit to ourselves what we are actually just sad or what we are actually depressed about. So, how to solve depression? Now, this is going to go similar to anxiety. First, what are you depressed about? What is it? Your job? Is it your family? Is it what is it? Is it your appearance? What are you depressed about? Can you change situations that you're depressed about? Can you change it? Again, a lot of things you can't change, and some things you can change. If you don't like how your fingers are shaped, I mean, you can't change that. So let's not get depressed about that. But are you depressed about your weight? You feel like you're overweight. You can change that. You can go on a diet. You can exercise. You can change that. So let's determine what you're depressed about and can you actually change your situation. Three, what steps can you take to change? What steps can you take to actually change? So determine, try to write it out what you can do step by step to change the outcome on what you are depressed about. And again, number four, most important, start the process. Once you have your steps, once you realize what you're depressed about, it can be one thing, it can be multiple things. But the most important thing, dude, once we know the information, let's actually implement it and start it. Now, again, if you are that I want to be I do want to be thoughtful with this situation with depression specifically because there are some people who may be diagnosed with actual clinical depression, which I feel like at that point weed weed is not, I don't think weed is strong enough to actually help clinical depression. So, if it's you or somebody else are thinking about harming yourself or attempting suicide, tell somebody who can help right away. Call 911 for emergency services. Go to your nearest hospital emergency room, or you can call or text 988 to connect with the 988 Suicide and Crisis Lifeline. The Lifeline provides 24-hour confident support to anyone in suicidal crisis or emotional distress. Support is also available via live chat. Okay, it helps me sleep. So this is another big one people say about why they continue to use marijuana. Weed can help sleep in the beginning. If you can't get a full night of sleep, you find it hard to go to sleep, you get home from work, your mind is still racing, you toss and turn. Weed in the beginning can definitely help you get a better night of sleep. But scientists have argued that long term use of cannabis can hinder productive sleep. So the longer you use it, your body, I think with anything, your body gets immune to it. And actually, it's been studied that it can actually hurt your sleep the longer you use it because it actually hurts the REM cycle of your sleep. They say people tend to not go into fourth deepest that fourth deepest sleep where you dream, and that's why they say many people don't remember their dreams when they smoke a lot of weed. Now, again, that can differ from person to person because I myself, I've always dreamed whether I smoke weed or not. I'm a dreamer. I have many weird, crazy dreams at all times. Um, but long-term use of cannabis can hinder your sleep. And also, you may find it hard to go to sleep because the longer you use it, it can make you sleepy in the beginning, but you smoke for 7, 10, 15 years. At this point, you're used to weed. It a lot of times more so stimulates your mind, so you can find yourself actually finding it hard to go to sleep because you're in deep thought about something. Your mind is racing and you're thinking about something. Your deep weed head thought where you just have all these thoughts flowing and circulating in your brain that weed has just stimulated. So that can be a thing too for long term use. Um, And although we may think of this as a better alternative than taking like sleeping aids or even narcotics, we should not develop a dependency on anything, you know, on anything. Um, we need to find an underlying reason on why we are finding it hard to sleep. If you have issues with sleeping, I would consider doing a sleep study. I myself recently am getting a sleep study done. It's actually not a connection with weed withdrawal or weed addiction. I can sleep well, but I snore a lot, so my wife keeps her up. But you may want to, if you aren't using weed to sleep and you can't sleep, and you had this problem before you start smoking weed, it may benefit you to get a sleep study to kind of find out maybe you have some type of medical issue and why you're not sleeping. Again, this can be linked back to the anxiety, the depression. Maybe you're nervous, you're worried about something, and that's causing you not to sleep. So there could be multiple reasons on why you're not sleeping, and we doesn't solve it. It just temporarily again masks the problem. It helps my appetite. Now, although I don't think unless you're actually ill with the disease, I don't think many people start smoking to help them eat, but long term use of marijuana, you can start to link your appetite with weed. You start not to be hungry unless you have smoked. That was a big reason on why I did not want to quit. Well, one of my big reasons because I felt like I'm gonna lose weight. I noticed when I was trying to wean myself off or lay off for a day or two, I did not want to eat. Food was not enjoyable. The longer you smoke, you do start to link your weed with your appetite. And that's not good. When we start to trickle into other areas of our life, it has at this point became a problem more so than a medication or medicine used to help us. Now we're starting to get some side effects from long-term use. And it's all mental. There's no study support that weed actually makes you hungry based on like your stomach or your actual appetite. It's your brain. It tricks your brain to thinking that you're hungry. It was all mental still. But when we quit, a lot of times we may have, like I said, stop for a day or two and realize I don't like food, but I'm not smoking. So we'll smoke longer because we feel like we need weed to actually eat. And also, like I said, it may scare you from trying to quit due to your fear of not eating. And me myself, I'm a slender guy. I didn't want to lose any weight. So I feel like once if I quit, I'm gonna lose like 15 pounds, and I can't afford to be any skinnier. But you will gain your appetite back usually in about a week or two. It can be longer, like a month for some, but you have to eat. So it is not a long term withdrawal effect. You get used to the habit. A lot of times we smoke because we're just a creature of habit. We get used to getting the weed, smelling it, rolling it, drying the blunt, firing it up, the smoking, inhale, puff puff. We get used to the habit of actually smoking. I am myself a creature of habit. I get used to doing certain things, and it's hard for me to just stop doing them because I'm used to doing them. I don't like change a lot of times, and I think a lot of times when we use weed for a long period of time, we don't. Sometimes we don't even reap that many benefits. We just get used to actually smoking, and we don't want to actually stop that habit. You smoke for. Let me like to go back. I actually went too fast. It was one. It was. Oh, I'll say, the last reason is you may smoke because you for health reasons. And I would say if you smoke for, and I mean health reasons, not as far as as not as far as anxiety or depression, but you may have cancer or autoimmune disease or epilepsy or any type of disease or cancer or autoimmune issue. If you're smoking for that reason, I don't even think you should be watching this, because I think that's a case when weed is good and should be used. I think the issue with people needing to quit weed is when we tend to abuse it for recreational purposes. So if you have disease or you're sick, more power. If your child is sick, you got autism, something like that. I've done a lot of researching on what weed is good for people who do have things like cancer, leukemia. More power to you. That's what it should be used for. It's when we abuse it recreationally, we're not sick, is when the issue falls in. So those are some of the reasons that you may have started smoking or you may continue to smoke. So I would say now, what are some reasons that you may want to quit? And it can be you are tired of hiding your addiction. You are tired of hiding your addiction. And it can also be causing issues in your relationship. Okay, I got tired of hiding my addiction before I started smoking. My wife, my wife did smoke with me. She quit when we had our second child, and when she had our second child, she chose to stop. We stopped cigarettes. I stopped cigarettes, but I didn't stop weed. And it got to a point where I started feeling guilty by continuing to smoke. So I started to. She never told me that I had to actually hide my addiction. She never told me I didn't want you smoking, but I felt guilty, so I started to hide it myself. I started to not smoke around her, sneak outside, sneak on the porch, go find a reason to go to the store so I could hit the blunt, or find a reason to go outside and cut the yard and hit the blunt, find reasons to smoke, but then hide it. So I got to put in my clear eyes. I got to make sure I spray. Actually started smoking with latex gloves so my fingertips wouldn't smell like weed. And I'm coming in and I'm nervous, like, does she know I'm smoking? Does she know? And I got tired of hiding the addiction, and it was causing an issue in my relationship. And people may say, how can weed cause like issues? It's just weed. It's not like it's cocaine or crack or alcohol. It's just weed. Anything can cause an issue if you allow it to. And if you have an addictive trait, and if you smoke weed all day, every day, you do have an addictive trait, and you can allow anything to cause an issue in your life, in your relationships. But you can get tired of that, and that can be a reason that you may want to quit. Now, it also says you are tired of being addicted to weed. Again, if you're here, you're watching this, you're probably tired. You're tired of being addicted. You're tired of the cycle. You want to live a life where you don't have to wake up to smoke weed. You tired of feeling like you need weed to go to sleep. You're tired of feeling like you need weed to talk to somebody. You need weed to work. You need weed to eat. You're tired of the shackles that weed has put over your life. You also may be suffering from CHS. Now, this is a newer disease that actually has really came up. Not saying it probably has been a thing for a long time, but it's only been discovered in recent years with a lot of states legalizing marijuana. Doctors didn't really know how to diagnose it, and it's called cannabinoid hyperemesis syndrome. And basically, it's a disease where a syndrome where weed makes you throw up. You smoke a lot of weed, you start to vomit. And it was interesting. I didn't realize I probably suffered from this until after I actually quit. There were times where I have like, I'm gonna say maybe, well, first in high school there was an issue where, because let's go back to what it is briefly. Basically, it your body has cannabinoid receptors. When you smoke weed a lot, sometimes the weed can kind of mess with your receptors, with your brain, and the receptors with your esophagus. So it almost crosses the wires, and it tells the receptors in your esophagus to tighten up and basically push your food back up, causing you to throw up. So I did have about, when I was about 17, to where I couldn't, my esophagus was closing up and I couldn't hold food down. And at the time, they told me that it was histoplasmosis, basically a bird poop disease. And when I actually researched the symptoms years after, I didn't really have any other symptoms of this. But when I researched CHS and how it works with your esophagus, causing you to, to tighten up and throw up your food, I'm like, I probably had CHS. And it did eventually stop, but I would say about a few times in my adult years, I have been like driving to work and had this immediate urge to throw up. I had to pull over and throw up. And thinking back, I'm like, that probably was CHS. Now, it can differ from person to person on how much it affects you. Some people are not affected at all by it. Some people can smoke for years and not experience it. Some people may experience it very light variations. Some moderately, and some that can be where they throw up every day. It really depends on the person. But you maybe want to quit because you're tired of being sick. You're smoking and it's making you sick. So I could imagine if you're having to vomit every day from smoking, you probably want to quit. That's a good reason to want to quit. Weed is too expensive. That's a big reason. Was a One of my other reasons for wanting to quit. Weed costs a lot. We know we are in times of inflation. Gas is high, eggs are high, groceries are high, cars are high, rent is high, weed is high. What you could get for $20 uh 15 years ago is not the same what you can get now. And if you live in a legal state, then you can go to dispensaries, although that may be seen, a lot more easier because you can just go to a store and get it. Those prices are even more expensive than you buying it from a street dealer. So if if you are not rich, you probably can afford to smoke weed every day because it can get expensive, especially when we're buying cigars or pipes or vape pens. It definitely adds up. I know I didn't smoke. I stayed in a state where I bought off the street, and I calculated where if I smoked for 20 years, I smoked anywhere from $20,000 to $30,000 worth of weed. That's a lot of money. That's just a lot of money that can be saved up in a 401k, in a Roth RA. You can like we can find better things to do with our money than just spending on weed all day. And just after 20 years, you've spent 30, 20, 30, 40 grand on just weed alone. Yeah. It is causing issues in your career. Now that's it's not as common. I can't say I've always said that weed didn't cause any issues in my career. I could smoke weed and go to work and be fine, and smoke weed on my lunch break and be fine. But that could not be the case for everybody. Maybe you can't get a job because you just can't pass a drug test. Maybe you have been losing jobs because your job has random drug tests. And I have seen people where they can't quit and they are ruining their career over weed. Look at Sha'Carri Richardson. I mean, we can say, I mean, obviously she came back, but for that year or two, she did mess her career up. That wasn't her best interest. And that can definitely happen in our regular life. Let's say we can lose our job if we in a job where we do have random drug tests. Now, many states have become lax on drug testing as far as marijuana, but that still could definitely be an issue on why you want to quit. So, the meat of this presentation on what are different tactics you can use to actually quit. Now, these can differ from person to person. You can do a combination of these, whatever floats your boat. Cold turkey, the most simplest, but can be the most hard. It's just deciding that I'm gonna quit and I'm not smoking weed anymore. If you can do that, that's great, and I think that's the best way. Did quit. I did quit cigarettes cold turkey. I did quit porn cold turkey. Um, I couldn't quit weed cold turkey. Weed had a bigger hold over me. But if you are able to just recognize you have an issue and just stop and just great. And really, in a sense, you can say that we all have to quit cold turkey in a sense because you all eventually whether you wing yourself off or eventually you have to just stop. So in a sense, you all go cold turkey, but I'm talking if you go from smoking several blunts a day to just none. But I, me personally, I found that the winging off method is better because I think cold turkey, like I said, if it works for you, not saying it can't, great, go for it. But I think when we hit ourselves, when we're used to smoking weed every day and we shock our system, that can sometimes give us too much shock to where we can like relapse quickly after that because it's just too abrupt. It's just too it just shocks the system too much. So what I found better worked for me was the winging off method. Before, like I said, in a sense, we all quit cold turkey, but what worked for me is I slowly weaned myself off. I went from smoking. I started off. Let's say I would smoke 5 to 7 blunts per day. I start with well, maybe I could smoke 3 blunts a day, then 2 blunts a day. Then what if I can smoke 2 blunts, smoke every other day? Then what if I can smoke once a week? I tried variations of smoking like I would lay off for a week or two, then smoke a week or two, then lay off. There's different ways you can wing yourself off, but by the time that I actually chose to quit weed, I was not smoking weed every single day, all day. I did have experience where I had experience with not smoking in a day or smoking very little. So when I finally chose to quit, it was much easier just stopping because I did have proof that I could go weeks or a week or days without actually smoking. Removing yourself from a particular environment. If you're around people who smoke weed, get away, get away from around them. Now, okay, if you have friends that you hang with that still smoke weed, I feel like if you have friends that, if you want to quit smoking weed, you probably are wanting to excel in other parts of your life. You're not just wanting to smoke weed. You want better health. You want a better career. So personally, I think if you want to quit weed, you're not going to be hanging around potheads all day. But if you are, it's probably best to limit your time with your friends, with your family who still smoke weed. Now, I also will say that 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 shouldn't be the primary way to quit, because I think truly quitting and letting something go is saying that I can be around weed and still not partake. If you feel like that I'm going to remove myself because if I'm around them, I'm going to partake, I think we haven't truly let weed go and we're still self consciously hanging on to it. But I think in combination with winging yourself off or going cold turkey, you probably should remove yourself or limit yourself from environments that may promote smoking or try to entice you or make you feel bad because you're not smoking. So if you're around a lot of potheads, remove yourself from that. And if, like I said, if you're trying out this, if you're trying to quit smoking and they're still smoking, you probably are you probably are advancing at life in other areas than just not smoking weed. So that really shouldn't be extremely hard. Find an accountability partner. Find someone who can hold you accountable, almost like a AA sponsor. And people may say you don't need an AA sponsor for weed, and you might not, but this may actually help you. When I quit smoking, my wife, like I said, she had stopped smoking, but my last day that I smoked, I told her, "This is I'm tired of hiding it. I'm tired of it having a hold of my life. This is my last blunt. I'm going to smoke with you. You see me, and I will not pick up weed unless we are together. So you are my witness. Next time I smoke, you will see me." And I think by me allowing her to hold me accountable, that increased my chances of staying sober or staying away from weed. Because not only if I relapse, not only am I letting myself down, I'm letting her down. So I think that gave me more motivation to actually continue to stay weedless, if that's a word. But if you have that option, if you have a spouse or a significant other or a friend that, doesn't smoke weed, tell them, say, hold me accountable. Say, if you see me smoking, call me out on it. If you if you see me getting ready to go down that road, call me out and hold me accountable. And I think by adding somebody into it, that just strengthens your commitment to yourself, and also adding the other person in, it gives you something, a standard to actually live up to. Find something good to replace weed with. Now, I don't mean replace it with cigarettes or alcohol or shrooms or even CBD. Replace it with a health journey. Replace it with a new business. Replace it with something you've been wanting to advance your life with. Because if you smoke weed, if you have become addicted to weed, you do have an addictive trait in your personality. Now, how we may view that as a bad thing, I would say it's probably a good thing. So you have proven to yourself you are capable of devoting your life to something and sticking to it. Now just take weed out the equation and replace it with something that's positive, that's beneficial for you, and put that same effort, that same motivation, that same consistency you put into weed into that new project. So when you're finally quitting weed, it's not like you're letting weed go, but you're starting a new life, a new process. So life is not dull, it's not boring, it's new, it's exciting, It's thrilling, and you have something to take your time up where you're not focused on just smoking weed. And all these things, you can implement those things all one one of those or all together. I find it's best to do them all together. Wing yourself off. Take yourself out of the circle of people who still smoke weed. Find a new hobby, a new venture. If you can, allow somebody to hold you accountable for not falling back into your old ways. If you implement at least two of these things, or not all five, you are increasing your chances of success and completely staying free of weed. Now, here's some helpful resources. Now, these books that I'm recommending are not about addiction specifically, but these have been so helpful in my journey about discovering myself, learning about myself, um, advancing myself in life, and just being very aware of my emotions, of my feelings, of my motivations, and learning how to use them in the correct way that'll create the best outcome for my life. So the first one I will say is The War of Art by Steven Pressfield. I first read this book when I was about 20 years old in film school, and I thought it was boring then. I didn't get anything from it. And it's amazing that I read this book 15 years later, and I got so much from it. It talks about, a big part of our issues, uh, overcoming something or pursuing something, is resistance. We all have this resistance. We're trying to quit weed. We have this resistance to not quit, this underlying resisting trait in our nature that allows us to not pursue something. So the War of Art uh, delves into that and prompts you to work against the resistance and usually find a creative outcome that you can live up to. So if you're trying to quit and you're a artsy fartsy artistic creative person, this book will you will find so much greatness in this book. Atomic Habits by James Clear. He talks about how people develop habits, how we make good habits, break bad habits. Definitely, definitely helpful when we're trying to break the habit of smoking weed. Very inspiring story of how he had to overcome his obstacles in life by implementing good habits in his life and knocking the bad ones out. So, a great read if you're trying to find out how to pick up good habits and stop bad habits. Um, Outwitting the Devil by Napoleon Hill. Now, this is kind of a the most, I would say, left field book I'm recommending, but I think it's a great book. It's Napoleon Hill where he's talking, having a back and forth conversation with the devil, and not comparing weed to the devil, because also with marijuana, I don't I don't demonize weed. I still would say that weed is not bad. People are bad. We have bad traits. And I think it's good that we recognize our bad traits, recognize our good traits, and learn to not fall victim to ourselves. And I think Napoleon Hill's back and forth with the devil will definitely help you in discovering yourself and living up to your best potential. But I definitely recommend this book for anybody. The Power of Concentration by Theron Dumont. And it talks about the power of actually concentrating on one thing with an outcome. A lot of times we have an issue, especially now society. We're so in a fast-paced microwave, um, get rich quick society. We lack the power of concentration. A lot of times with addiction, with how we fail to get off things like weeds because we fail to actually concentrate on overcoming the addiction. So I think this book is great for talking about the power of concentration and how it can definitely benefit your life. And the last one is not a book, it's a guided journal to help you quit cannabis. I created this book about last year, and basically, I don't think people need rehab to quit weed. I think you're more capable of doing it on your own. But I do think we we have to be very cognitive of our feelings, our emotions, and be very aware of ourselves. And the great thing about quitting weed is you can do it within 30 days. If you stick to a plan for 30 days, you can basically rewire your brain, rewire your mind. So I created this 30-day guided journal. So it's a little more than just a journal. It has a day by day prompt where I go through various thoughts and exercises each day to help you discover your addiction and discover why you have fell into this addiction and ways and thoughts you can have to help you get out of this cycle of weed addiction. And this is available on Amazon and is definitely helpful if you're trying to start your process. Give yourself 30 days, and I guarantee you, you will make a change. Link, I will link all these books in the notes below in the description. But all these five resources are great for not only quitting weed addiction, but more so creating a better life for yourself. Now, I thank you guys if you did stick through this long. Now, this isn't it is we can I can go hours more. I didn't want to go too long. I wanted to give you uh, a pretty good start to overcoming weed addiction, but I didn't want to go 3 hours. Um, but I definitely want to help you in your start for overcoming weed addiction. Um, we are Quitting Mary. I do have a YouTube channel that's dedicated to people on their cannabis sobriety journey. So definitely visit this channel. I have videos, I have shorts. I again have my 30-day guided journal to quit cannabis to help you on your journey. And I just thank you guys for sticking around. I congratulate you on your journey. If you may feel like, am I weird? Am I overthinking this? People say weed is not an addiction. Like, am I the crazy one? No. If you're here, you have recognized there's an issue, you want to solve it, and I think you will solve it. So I thank you guys. Again, congratulate you on your journey. I know you definitely can do this, and I plan on putting out more long form class videos to help you in your journey. Some more dedicated to specific topics. But if you have anything, want to know anything, please comment below. Like, subscribe, share to the channel. Again, I put out weekly content on this topic, and I just thank you guys for your consideration. And remember, guys, we are all in this together. Bye.